C2Wrestling podcast, CTD and Snowden. We're back. Busy week of wrestling, as usual, on the road to WrestleMania. Busy week in C2, doing recaps, reviews, rants, you name it. And should be a busy second that it takes to click subscribe, to turn on notifications. A couple extra seconds that aren't so busy, where you go in the description, click on our socials, follow there, and prove you're not a coward. Simple as that. But we got plenty to talk about with WrestleMania being under 40 days away. Probably about 38 now. I think Monday was 40, something like that. 37 when this drops, along those lines. We have not that many Raws and not that many SmackDowns left. We're seeing the path with some matches. We're still confused on others. There's rumors on big names facing, on even bigger matchups that are potential, and maybe some mistakes on who will win, who will lose. We'll get into all of it, but it's all not as relevant as how Snowden is doing on this beautiful day.
I'm not doing too bad. It is a pretty nice day. The weather is getting better here in Jersey. A little rainy today, but it's not 0 degrees. So it's a bit of a positive on my side of things. Been good though. I got 2K on the mind. I want to get into the universe mode. That's been fun. Been enjoying that for a little bit and just enjoying the build to WrestleMania. Not to say that this build is good or bad. It doesn't matter. The build to WrestleMania is still the build to WrestleMania. Like, I'm always in tune. I'm always wrestling come January to April. So, that's mostly what's on my mind. And there's a lot to discuss. There's things I like. There's things I'm not keen on. There's things I don't like. A lot to get into in this road to WrestleMania. I mean, like you said, only a couple Monday Night Raws, a couple Friday Night SmackDowns before the big show, or big shows because it's 2 night. It's an interesting build where I feel like certain facets of this build feel like WrestleMania. There's a couple things that we'll get into that, like, whether they happen or don't happen, feel like WrestleMania. There's a few other things that maybe don't have that WrestleMania star power, but it's that time of the year they're going to be put on that card. I'm confident, but I am a little just hopeful that this card still shapes up to be a WrestleMania level card at this point.
When it comes to like Mania build and Mania itself, you do have to lump it all together. If Mania stinks and the buildup is pretty solid, no one is going to be raving about the buildup. They're going to be talking about how Mania stunk. If Mania is good and the buildup is good, like, that makes it all. Like, I look back at last year, I was kind of enjoying the buildup last year. Like, I felt like there was all these different directions. I was always kept on my toes. I felt like I had to watch every show because I was like, this next episode might reveal the next matchup. We might find out something. We might go in a different direction, whatever. And then the show didn't deliver. And now that ended, and we sat here and we were like, man, like, we were cutting the slack for the build up because we thought the payoff would be great, but the payoff wasn't. So now when I look back at the build up, it's not good. It actually was just confusing and clustered and made no sense. So we have like a little bit of that this year, but say we get some really cool matchups. Say we get the Dom Finn in some crazy match and the Demon returns. We get Oba Brock. We get Rollins Braun Breaker, whatever. Like, we get these potential big matchups and Mania is really good. Then the build up, we look back at it with more rose-colored glasses. We're more like, man, like, we really thought for like a month they might do LA versus Brock, or like, man, they really kind of made us believe that Rollins might not actually get Braun Breaker. He might not be back in time, whatever. If the payoff is good, everything else immediately gets that bump up. But if the payoff sucks, it just makes it all look so much worse. And as a fan, you're just let down heavily.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if the payoff sucks, you might look back at that. Oh, man, that one Punk Roman promo was really good, though. Okay, sure. Maybe there's that moment here or there, but I've never seen a bad WrestleMania and people go, well, I mean, at least it was a good setup. Like, the idea is always, well, that WrestleMania kind of sucked. So it plays into it. This build has been good. It's again, it's better in certain facets. I like the direction of a couple of the SmackDown side of things, maybe a little bit more. But then, you look at the women on SmackDown and they're having a little bit of a rough build. So it's interesting. A lot to get into just off the back of, last week's Monday Night Raw, what's coming up on SmackDown. The idea of the fatal four way gets splits into singles matches. We got a little bit of a mix up with the Judgment Day potentially having a triple threat. That might be a singles match now. A lot of things that were maybe a bit obvious on paper are not as obvious anymore. I feel like one of the most prominent things and the most must happen thing is Oba Brock. I want to get right into that conversation because that is. We have driven this point home here at C2 at least. And I do feel like a lot of what I see online, a lot of the internet world is in a similar feeling that if you don't run Brock Oba, it's a bust. And a lot of rumors have been circulating right now. Reports that Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman included, do not want Brock Lesnar to lose a match until he is said and done. And I don't think that's an impossible thing. Who knows what's right or wrong on the dirt sheets nowadays? It's very tough to tell. But I wouldn't be surprised at that. If Brock isn't going to lose, it can't be Oba at WrestleMania is the problem. Oba losing to Brock at Mania hurts. Brock not facing Oba and beating somebody else sucks. It doesn't hurt, though. Brock Oba is the most must-happen match at this WrestleMania, though. I will be thoroughly disappointed if we go the route of that match happening and Oba loses, or that match just doesn't happen.
It's a complete letdown.
Yeah.
It genuinely could alter Mania if one of those two things happen. Brock faces Oba and Oba loses, or the match doesn't happen at all. I do not need Brock beating Oba and Oba builds himself back up to beat Brock Lesnar in the long run. I don't need that. He's not that type of character.
At Backlash again.
He's not that type of character. He's not Cody. He's not this underdog. He should be this beast. He should be
the ruler.
Yeah, he is the ruler. He should just win. So I understand kind of your fear. I don't care. Brock Lesnar is not on some undefeated streak. Brock Lesnar is not someone where if he loses at WrestleMania, all of a sudden he's not credible. It genuinely, you could have Brock lose to Oba and the next night attack the World Heavyweight Champion and you're doing Brock going for the title. And no one's going to be like, Brock Lesnar isn't the quality of a heavyweight champion. Why is he getting a title shot? It's Brock. He's always going to be at that unattainable level for so many. So when he loses a match, it really does not matter. It does not affect him in the slightest. This Mania needs Brock Oba. Brock LA, man, my thoughts about LA's fan base on fucking social media. I don't need to get into that. But I don't want to be in a spot where I'm agreeing with them and I'm on their side because that would be justified. This is nonsense. This is bullshit. This isn't doing anything. I left a post on Twitter. I forget who had the original post. To me, that's just treading water booking. You're too afraid to have Brock lose right now and you need to get LA on the card, so you're just going to tread water and put them together and have Brock win in probably one of the most forgettable matches that we'll see. And that just is not needed. Now, when it comes to Brock saying he doesn't want to lose until he retires, when is that? He doesn't wrestle that often, so it really could be whenever. I am not one who's so sold on him finishing in Minnesota at SummerSlam. I don't think Brock gives a single fuck. I think if there was a house show, genuinely, Brock could retire a crown jewel for all we know.
Styles did pretty much.
Yes, right. Exactly. I do kind of lean towards if they're going to try to make it make sense and have him finish at a show that's still good and he's going to get a big payday, I do kind of lean towards Mania in Saudi next year being his final match. Absolutely. You're telling me he's not going to lose for a year from now? I know that's not 100 matches. I know that's really 3 or 4 matches. But still, that's just going to be the most throwaway matches till we get there. Like, there's just no reason you shouldn't have Oba face and beat Brock at Mania. If you truly want people to get invested and you're trying to build these next stars and not be sat here on next year's build to Mania, relying on the same exact guys, feeling like there's nothing fresh, Oba beats Brock. And by next Mania, he's in the title picture and he could face anybody.
Yeah, I mean, Brock as well is he's so easy to build back up if he were to lose to Oba. I don't have expectations of Brock being on Raw post Mania, to be honest. Even the day after, it's just the Brock schedule of things. Like, maybe he does show up, but I'm not guaranteeing it. But it's pretty easy to have Oba beat Brock. Oba moves on to do whatever, and then Brock just comes out pissed off and interrupts the Danhausen segment and hits him with an F5, and he goes on a rampage and he gets a squash match at Backlash, and then he takes 3 months off, and then he's wrestling, what is it, Italy this year or wherever the hell they're going, like he gets a big win over somebody there. I do agree with the sentiment that I think Brock is more so slated to run until at least Mania 43 Saudi. I think Brock might fucking be a champion before then. I think Brock could go into Mania champion. I think there is a story somewhere on paper, at least, where it's, title versus career or something, whatever. Like, how do you get Brock to retire is interesting. Like, is it going to be a career match? I also agree. I don't think Brock gives a shit if he retires in fucking Minnesota or Saskatchewan or, Chicago or this, that. He doesn't care at all. I'm not on board with the Brock doesn't lose thing. Listen, if you want to do that until he retires and is going to retire at 43, 44, who cares, whatever, fine. That's still a year out. Him losing the Mania 42 match to Oba doesn't hurt that. You can give him the 4 or 5 matches where he crushes whoever and wins the title before the retirement match. Like, it's not that hard to build Brock back up. Brock winning against Oba, man, like the idea of creating new stars is just an idea at that point. Like, listen, it's an over exaggeration to say Oba's dead in the water if he loses that match. Oba, in the grand scheme of things, is still going to be the greatest of all time when he's said and done. Like, he's still going to be a future champion. But it's the history behind the legacy of these wrestlers, of the names of Oba Femi. When you look back in history, when you look back at Brock in history, the fucking immediate title win, the guys he beat, Taker, Rock, Angle, is beating the shit out of everybody. Like, there's a history to Brock Lesnar that makes him Brock Lesnar. If we look back at that grand scheme of Oba when he's almost said and done, we're not going to hit too hard. Oh, man, that time he lost to Brock at WrestleMania 42. But it is a damper to the overall career of Oba. Start him strong, end him strong. No excuses to me. It shouldn't even be debated. I understand like the devil's advocate point of view, like we should look at every option, like who should win this match. No. There is no talk about Brock beating Oba at WrestleMania. I won't stand for it. Oba or bust.
I do give Brock credit in the fact that a lot of people think like Brock doesn't like know the business or get the, like they really overthink
Yeah, they think Brock
these
is
things.
just like a robot to it all
Yeah,
or something. Like, I don't know.
like he knows more about wrestling than all of us because he's been in it for years. He's been at the top. He's been against the greatest of all time. He's worked backstage with all of these people, all of these minds. Like he knows what he's talking about and he knows what he's thinking. It might not always be good, but he does also have a history of having people beat him. And it's not like Brock is refusing to lose to an Oba Femi. I think if he gets sold on a plan with Oba Femi, he can be like, that makes sense business wise. I'll do the job. Look at Cody Rhodes. They sold him on Cody, and man, he sold for Cody and built Cody up big time. And people really overlook their feud in the stretch of Cody losing at 39. And they're just so focused on, oh, Brock attacking him didn't make sense. Fine, whatever. The start of the story didn't really make sense. But Brock still elevated Cody big time.
Mm-hmm.
If they sell Brock on this plan with Oba, I don't think Brock would absolutely refuse to lose the match. I think the worry is, do they genuinely have that plan? Like where I can side with Brock in this is when he gets asked, "Hey, we want you to lose to Oba Femi at WrestleMania," and he goes, "Okay, and then what?" Genuinely, I think they might not know. And the reason I bring that up is look at Gunther with Cena. He beats Cena, and then you're like, all right, he should be going for the championship, right? And he faces Styles, fine. Now, he should be the hottest fucking thing. He should be the top guy, and he's not.
Should have
And
won the
so I
Rumble.
kind of understand if that's where Brock Lesnar is sat. Like, hey, you got to build this guy up and prove it to me a little bit more because if I lose to him, the next night, whoever wins Roman Punk, he better fucking walk out and go face to face with them and be saying, I'm going for the championship. Like, that's what he should be doing.
Hmm.
That's where I would agree with Brock because I don't think they actually have that thought. I think they're like, no, we're going to
Yeah.
run back. You know, we got to get Rollins back into the mix because he's back healthy. And we got Cody and Fatu and Orton on the other side, blah, blah, blah. And we still eventually have to get Gunther in the mix. Like, that's where I might agree with him if that's his thought process. That he sees after them not, Oba's going to fucking then face I don't know, Damian Priest or something. It's like, dude, you got to have this guy go for a championship if he's beating me at WrestleMania.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think Brock gives, I don't want to say he doesn't give a shit, but I don't think he gives that much of a shit sometimes. Like, I don't think they're asking him the job to Matt Riddle, so he's not going to give a shit. You know, I think there's a couple names in there where Brock maybe doesn't want to get involved with, isn't going to put over, sure. But I think a lot of the pitches to Brock are really just Brock, you know, how much you paying me? Okay. And how much I got to show up to do this. It is a little bit of the Brock mentality, maybe.
Yeah, but
Um,
he does have a good like mind for the
he
business,
does.
and
That's what I
Oba
was
is
just going
so
to say. Yeah.
young.
Well, that's what I was just going to get into is that I think Brock's mind for the business is a little underrated. Like, and you can even look at his selling as like a point to back that up, where Brock is really a genius in the ring. Like, he really, really gets it. Probably more than some other people, more than he'll ever get credit for. And I think it goes deeper than just like the ring psychology and selling. There's a storyline to it all too. And that's maybe a more behind the scenes thing that we don't see, but I think Brock gets it. I think there's a reason in hindsight Brock never wanted to take that match with Matt Riddle, and he never wanted to job or fight Matt Riddle. I mean, Matt Riddle's not in WWE anymore. You know, like the writing's on the wall sometimes.
Brock
Cody
Shane.
Rhodes, what's that?
Brock Shane.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the writing's on the wall. Crazy times. That's insane. The writing's on the wall with certain people. I think Brock looks at a Cody and like Cody's got the respect. That's QB1. All right, we can do this here. I think the idea with Oba is the next big thing. And I imagine Brock realizes that. You know, I don't think Brock is tuning into NXT every week, but I think he realizes that at the very least. We'll see where they go. Again, it's just, it's a, man, maybe this is an exaggeration, but I don't know if it is to say that it is an all-time blunder to not run this match at WrestleMania. You have it. You have the opportunity. You have the chance. You sometimes you just gotta pull the trigger, and this is that time.
You know, I mentioned like Brock LA just feels like treading water. Like it feels like a bit of a waste. You know, it's still a big matchup. And say Brock faces someone else, he faces in LA, he faces a Jey Uso, whoever. Like it's still gonna be like a star driven matchup. I think the worry should be put more on the flip side, and we haven't really talked about it, is then who the hell does Oba face at WrestleMania? Because Oba has to have a Mania match. Like you can't not have Oba have a Mania match. Like what are you gonna have him like take on two guys at once again at Mania? Like what truly, who's available, who makes sense, who can you do? Like no matter what, it's going to be thrown together if it's not Brock, and there's really no story that you're going to be able to tell in that time frame that makes sense. Like I feel like this Monday Brock's going to come out and I feel like Oba's going to interrupt him.
Yeah, I do.
I think it's actually going to happen.
I do too.
But if it doesn't, Who the hell does Oba face at WrestleMania?
Yeah, it's interesting because I love my boy Sheamus, but it's maybe a pro that he's out right now because if he wasn't, I think that would be the pitch is Brock LA and then Sheamus Oba. We just ran Rusev Oba. Could they run that back at Mania? I mean, I guess, but it is not Mania level, Mania worthy. We just had Oba squash him. Why run it back? We had pitched months ago, this might even be before Drew won the title, the idea of Oba getting Drew at Mania. That could have made sense. There could have been a story there. Clearly, they're not going that route, so it's not happening. Let's just say Brock gets LA. I'm not kidding. I don't think I'm at a point where if you gave Brock LA as much as Oba has to be on that card, you might be better off leaving him off the card. There's just not like a credible opponent
I'll tell you what they
matchup
do.
build.
They throw him in the Andre Battle Royal and have him eliminate like 20 people and win.
Literally everybody. Yeah, he's gonna like solo eliminate the biggest guy in the match
Yeah.
and
They're
crush
gonna have him
everybody.
like it'll be like 30 guys in there and he's gonna eliminate like 19 of them and
Yeah,
win. And it's
yeah.
gonna be like this massive
Mhm.
domination. It's like, well, yeah, that's nice, but this should be at WrestleMania. This should be on fucking ESPN. It should be on this guy's the future of the company. His match should be on
You know,
ESPN. Have
that's
those
a
people see this guy.
it is an interesting thought. I'm glad you bring up the ESPN thing. The first hour on ESPN. Both nights first hour on ESPN?
Saturday is on ESPN 2 the first hour.
Okay.
Sunday is on ESPN the first hour.
Yeah, okay. You gotta imagine there's certain people they want to showcase on ESPN. Likely your established names to a point. I don't expect Roman Reigns and CM Punk to do anything other than main event. So there's got to be some established names they want on ESPN, but then they also do probably want to showcase, one or two of the up and comers. A lot of those up and comers are hurt right now, so you're left a little thin. Oba being on the Mania card, man, it is a must happen. If you're going to put him in the Andre Battle Royal, you get that Andre Battle Royal on Mania this year. I don't give a fuck. Like, you make it happen. Oba has to be on the card. It just has to be against Brock. The Andre Battle Royal doesn't cut it. Like, that doesn't do it for me. The Andre Battle Royal is a step beneath Oba Femi, if we're being honest. Also, the guys that have won the Battle Royal, yeah, Carmelo Hayes is U.S. champion right now. Bronson Reed is in a big faction. Like, so, some things have come out of it, sure, but it's not the match you win and then go on to be number one contender or this or that or whatever. The Oba push needs to be something we haven't quite seen in a while. I really want like a, Umaga, early Sheamus, like level of destruction type push for Oba Femi. And it starts with beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
Yeah, so this Monday, Brock returns, and there's 5 Raws left until Mania. So if it's another Brock segment where he's just saying, I'm waiting for someone to interrupt me and nothing happens, you're then down to 4. Each week that passes, it goes to, if it's not Oba, we will need to know Oba's path in those 1 or 2 weeks because we can't have it 2 weeks away and no one's answered the call to Brock and it's going to be LA, but Oba, you still don't have this built up last 2 week story with some underdog that's trying to beat him up, whatever. That's, where we're almost at that like teetering point. And it's going to bring me to my next topic in a second. We are at that point in the Mania build where you get through the Rumble finishes, and you semi know some main events. You know one person that's going to be in one main event and one person that's going to be in another main event as the challengers. You still don't know which title they're going to go for. Most of the time, you have a pretty good idea. Then you get to the chamber, and that's where essentially your 4 title matches are set. And at that point, normally in the chamber and the rumble, you also get some eliminations or interferences or whatever that set up some other matches. Last year's chamber match, it's like the main Mania card got built from the chamber and right after the chamber match. We're at that point right now where your SmackDown is tomorrow on Friday. Once you get past this SmackDown, there's 5 shows left for each brand. 5 Raws, 5 SmackDowns. to get to WrestleMania. This is kind of that like final go. Like you should be with your stories this fifth week, like you're at that top of the hill and
Mhm.
now you're about to start flying into it. We should know or have a good sense of a lot of the matchups pretty much from this fifth week because then you're given a month to build up whatever is new. If Oba is going to face, I don't know, pick a random name out of a hat. I'm not saying this is the matchup.
The
Oba's
Miz.
if Oba's going to face the Miz at WrestleMania, they need to start this week, latest next week, because
Hmm.
the final shows you almost write off. So even though there's 5 Raws, there's really only 4 because that last show isn't going to be really setting up something new. So you got to establish these stories if they're not already established, if there's no history to them. That's not that much time. Right now, Mania, yeah, there's a good handful of matches that we have a pretty good idea or they're set up, but there's still a large chunk where we're like, where the hell is this going? And our good friend of the show, as Tim Dillon would say, Dave Meltzer, said on his show that if the booking was good, you would know 8 to 10 matches right now. And I don't think that number is that great because if they are doing 14, right now we might have a good idea on like 8 because 4 of them are title matches that we pretty much already know.
Well,
That's
I was
already
just gonna
like
say
10.
like 4 matches are like locked in already. There's
Yeah.
4 title matches that are locked
So,
in.
so I'm going to focus more on like
Uh,
the 10.
yeah.
You should have a good idea on the 10. Now, there's some stories where they're intertwined and we have a good idea that these things might happen. But if you told me Sammy doesn't face Trick at WrestleMania, I wouldn't be stunned. If you told me the Usos end up in some different type of tag match, I wouldn't be stunned. If you told me Penta is actually not defending against both El Grandes, he's facing a plethora of guys, I wouldn't be shocked. But we got to kind of figure out those paths now where it doesn't need to be the most obvious thing ever. I'm not telling you that this Raw, they need to come out and just say, all right, here's Mania, here's all 14 matches. But it should be a little bit clearer than it is right now. The waters are a little mucked up in some stories.
They are. You know, the 4 matches, right? The 4 locked in matches. You got Punk and Roman. You got Cody and or not? Yeah, you got Cody and Orton. I almost said Cody and Drew. Cody and Orton, which I guess it's locked in. I suppose we still could get a Fatal 4 Way. We'll see, but 99%,
Yeah.
it's not the Fatal 4 Way anymore. And then we got Stephanie Liv, and then you got Raquel, or not Raquel, Rhea and Jade. I'm all over the place. So those are the 4 locked in matches, right? So keep those 4. And then you got like the all but confirmed. Dom and Finn is one of those, right? I want to put Brock Oba in that bunch, but I can't yet. Brock Oba doesn't fall in that bunch for me yet. I would like to put Usos versus the Vision in that bunch. That's like, I want to say all but locked in as well, but I don't know.
LA
Like
still in the
LA,
mix.
exactly.
Rollins is in
Like
the mix.
Rollins is still in the mix. The 6 match I would put in there is honestly, I hope it makes the cut. That's the only reason I might not put it in here is because it might not make the cut, but it's Carmelo and Ilya. That seems like the direction for the US title. It doesn't seem like we're getting some multi-man thing for that. But again, like that might be the SmackDown prior, as much as I hate to say it. As much those are 2 guys I think should absolutely make the card. But regardless, like we have 4 locked in matches. There's 2, 3 matches that are like, all right, we see the plan
Drew
here.
Fatu.
Drew Fatu would be the next one based off the Fatal 4 Way. After that, like, we're getting a women's tag title match. I don't know who the fuck it's going to be. We're going to get, I agree. You said I wouldn't be surprised if Sammy Trick doesn't make the card. I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if Trick doesn't make the card to some degree, though. Like, there's something somewhere there. We're at that point where it's got to start shaping up a little bit more. You have 1 more week, 2 more weeks, maybe. Anything that starts after these next 2 weeks is not like a blood feud. It's not really like a WrestleMania end all be all. This is the end of our story. which is okay. WrestleMania doesn't always have to be like the rivalry ender. It can be like a transition to something new. It can be the start too. It doesn't necessarily matter. But we're at a point where I do want a little bit of a clearer picture on some things. I like the idea of some suspense. I do want to like listen. I wish it was a fatal four way, the SmackDown Championship. I like the suspense of like this Friday. They still could go that direction. I don't think they're gonna, but I want that idea for a little bit. Some of these matches, sure. We have to hit that point though. Like I don't want to be scared anymore. You got to lock in Oba Brock. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want that fear of this is not going to happen. Lock it in so I can stop worrying about it. I want to see it shape up a little bit more, honestly, this week.
Yeah, it kind of brings me back to the Mania 40 build where we didn't know, like, are we getting Cody Rollins? Are we getting Cody
Hmm.
Roman? The Rock has just come out. Like, how are they going to do this? It was such like madness, and they obviously changed their plans because the fans forced them to. But we can't really like give them credit for it. Like that was like I almost feel like they looked back at that and they're like, man, we kept them on their toes the entire time. We got to do that again. It's like, well, no, you didn't keep us on our toes. You guys, well, you had a plan and it was fucking terrible and you got forced to change it. That doesn't mean every mania has to be like, there's a happy medium. It doesn't have to be the most obvious thing ever where the night after WrestleMania, John Cena and The Rock say, "Hey, we're main eventing next year." Like it doesn't have to be where a year out you announce the main event, but it also doesn't have to be like this absolute mosh pit of people where you truly have no idea and you're not investing into these things. That's the thing. Like, say it was all these people going for the Intercontinental Championship and you're like, oh man, like, is it going to be Penta El Grande? Is it going to be Penta Javon Evans? Like,
Yeah.
how's it going to play out? Whatever. And it ends up playing out in a multi man match, or it ends up playing out in Javon becomes the number one contender, whatever. But you have these weeks of like being invested in the story that the outcome, it's like, I'm now invested in it. Division, we're not invested in this anymore. The Rollins situation, we're invested in Rollins, but this isn't like a, oh man, this looks like it's going to have a great payoff. Now, if Braun Breaker comes back, sweet. People are going to get invested in that. But you probably need Braun Breaker to come back in a week or two. Because if he comes back the week before WrestleMania, yes, it's a big match. Yes, it's quite the surprise. But are we as invested as we could be? I don't know. Is he even going to be cleared by then? Are you just treading water because you don't know? That genuinely might be the reason, which I understand. But guess what? If you're 50-50 on it, you got to kind of make a choice because we got to start clearing things up. You're either in or you're out. If you feel confident that he's going to get cleared, start working towards a story that he's going to be cleared and you feel confident that the Usos and Theory and Logan, it can be more obvious there. And then you got to figure out LA Knight situation, whatever. Just feels like it's so muddied up. I saw another report. Here's another example. I saw another report that before Jordan Grace got hurt on main event, there was a potential matchup of Jordan Grace versus Tiffany Stratton versus Julia for the United States Championship. Pretty cool matchup. Fine. When was that going to start? Was that going to start this week? Because if it does, fine. You got 5 weeks, 5 more shows to really build it up. You can get somewhere with it. But they really haven't done much before then to like get you invested in it. And now you're going to have to pivot there. And there's rumors maybe Io faces Julia at Mania. Well, if she's going to, she's got to show up on SmackDown this Friday
Hmm.
or latest next Friday. It's got to get moving now because no one's going to get invested in any of these things. And I understand injuries suck. Chelsea Green being out hurts. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Jordan Grace now, if that rumor is true. I get it. This also isn't the first WrestleMania to deal with injuries, and it won't be the last. So you got to have these backup plans, and that's normally where your multi-person booking pays off. But right now, it's not the multi-person booking that we're used to.
Yeah, I agree. I do like to believe in the world of Braun Breaker that obviously injuries happen and they can be abrupt. His was Bronson Reed's injury was abrupt as well, but Braun Breaker, I would like to hope. I don't want to say thing. I want to hope that their idea was like you're going under the knife tonight because we have to get in there to be ready by Mania. If we wait too long, you won't be good. So like it was very abrupt. I feel like Braun was good, and then I get that update that Braun's in surgery, and it's like, oh shit, like okay, something obviously must have happened. My hope is that they got to that in the fashion they did to get him back in time for WrestleMania. I just said on the Monday Night Raw review, I don't care if Braun gets cleared by a doctor during the WrestleMania pre-show. If he gets cleared, it's Braun Breaker versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. That is another must-happen match based off of the things that have happened over the year. I think the Bronson Reed injury throws a loop into that plan entirely. If that was the idea from the beginning, like Braun's going to go get, fixed up and he'll be back in time. Bronson Reed will hold it over. He gets hurt like that, screwed up some deeper plans as well. Braun Breaker might not be ready. Complications can happen from surgery. Even if he was supposed to be, you just never know. So you got to have backup plans in mind. When it comes to the woman you had mentioned, Jordan Grace got hurt as well. Awful timing, of course. It happens. Julia is still like floating around anyways, like hasn't really had a real feud or real anything. If you're gonna go that route and get her on the Mania card, you got to get pushing on it because that's already a title, a championship, a woman that hasn't really had much to her thus far. I get it. People love Julia. She's good. She's cool. She's got a good look, a good gimmick. Character's fun. I understand it. I couldn't give a shit about it right now because they're doing nothing. If it was up to me, if you told me right now, book your 14 matches, that title probably gets left off the card. The injuries don't help because I would like to fix in a Chelsea Green somewhere and a Jordan Grace and whatnot. But like, there's just other priorities right now too. There's more must see things, perhaps. A couple of these must see things I already just kind of mentioned a little bit prior. Trick Williams has got to find himself on the card. We already talked a bunch. Oba Femi has to be on the card versus Brock. I like to think they want Javon Evans somewhere in the card, but he's young, he's got time. What is the most must see thing? The most we can push this till Backlash. What are they gonna get on the card? What are they gonna hold off on the card? We've again mentioned this a bunch. The Friday night before, the Monday Night Raw after are big nowadays too. So, what is not going to make the cut this year is an interesting thought. The injuries play a big part into it. Again, the U.S. women's U.S. title maybe isn't the biggest thing in the grand scheme of everything going on in WWE, but the simple injury to Jordan Grace might be the reason that the triple threat doesn't happen, and we just put that title on SmackDown prior now. I don't know. We got a lot to get to in only a couple weeks. It is, it's 5.5 hours of TV every week, sure, but we got to start pushing. I have a little bit of fear. I'm going to relate this to the SmackDown tag titles, which is like irrelevant to the WrestleMania side of things right now. But the SmackDown tag titles, the SmackDown tag division was fantastic. It was doing so well for so long. Hey, let's give more time to SmackDown. Let's give them another hour. It's only going to get better. We've seen less and less and less of the tag division. So, like, with more content, we're getting less content in a ways. So it puts a little fear into me that certain things aren't going to be built properly come WrestleMania.
I'm going to take the bat out and I'm going to beat the dead horse again.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty good at that.
This We are very good at beating the dead horse. It does all circulate back to the draft, and
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a second. This Mania, if they built it up to genuinely pay off stories that have been going on for quite some time, I get it. Some people might be a little, ugh, I'm over this, whatever. There's a large chunk of matches that maybe not on Mania specifically, but Mania weekend, the Friday before, like you said, the Monday after, hell, even the Friday after has become pretty big. Where we pay off these stories, if we got the culmination of Io and Asuka, and that finally got wrapped up, MFT and Wyatt 6, that finally gets wrapped up, Ilya and Carmelo, like these are, like, the Vision and the Usos slash LA, whatever. these are stories that need to get wrapped up. And wrapping them up WrestleMania weekend, it doesn't all have to be on WrestleMania, makes sense and would be good for the future of the WWE if it then led to a draft after, because a lot of these people have been dealing with the same people. The El Grandes and Penta, like I'm interested in that. That can be a Mania match if that's all three of them together. You can do something interesting there. If it's on the Raw after, it's gonna feel like a letdown for Penta, but I guess I guess I could understand it, whatever. But it's the part after when you get to Backlash in Tampa and you're kind of having the we should call it backwash of Mania, and you're finalizing all of these stories and whatnot, and it's the final story of Solo and Uncle Howdy, whatever. Right after that is where we need that shakeup because by the time we get to next year's Mania, it won't feel like all of these people have been facing for 8 months straight because right now that's where we're at. You've already had all these people face others, and then their current story has been the longest one forever, and it's losing the fan base. This Mania, you got to bank on the main events being big sellers. You got to do Brock Oba for that being a big seller. The two women's title matches are pretty much the two biggest title matches that they could make. So bank on that. Then pretty much the rest of the card just has to be like, we need to wrap these stories up and we need to start getting somewhere. Trick Sammy is still fairly more fresh, but it's still been a thing for, even before the Rumble. So at this point, when we get to Mania, it's going to be 3 months that they've been a thing. Let's start to wrap these things up and get that like clean slate. But it goes back to, they won't.
Yeah, they won't. It's tough. I mean, you mentioned it all kind of goes back to a draft. Man, it blows my mind that there is possibly people in that creative room denying a draft. Like that is mind blowing to me.
That's infuriating. It actually is like
Infuriating.
angering.
It's like, listen, I was not a fan of the shake-up system. I prefer like a draft system. I'll take a shake-up. I'll take a draft. I'll take a couple trades. Come up with a new system. I do not care. Figure it out. That is, in the wrestling year of 2026, the most important thing to me is officially having another draft. And I think we both know by now, if they were to do a draft right after WrestleMania, they could do it in the middle of the year, September, whatever. If they do a draft this year, I think we both know we got like a month before we start seeing cross-branded shit again. Like it's never going to be the brand split we once had in the Ruthless Aggression era. A lot of these cross-branded PLEs and stuff don't help that cause because they want to build these feuds like that. But man, it's just come WrestleMania or post WrestleMania, I should say. There is a lot you can get into, Backlash, or as you say, backwash, is the fallout of WrestleMania. Again, if I don't expect Brock to have a match at Backlash, but if Brock were to lose to Oba and then you want to give Brock a fucking squash match to like rebuild him, yeah, like that, you can make that work. If you have Ilya Carmelo, that's probably the end of their feud. I don't expect them to get another runaround at Backlash. Carmelo, Ilya, whoever wins, probably goes into a new thing. The championship matches, Roman's not around a whole lot, sure. So like I don't really think Roman's going to show up at Backlash unless he's champion. Maybe Punk gets the run back. Like cool. We maybe have like 1 month, whatever, of post WrestleMania where you have other things established that you can play off of. After Backlash, what are we doing? Like what's the new thing? What are we pushing? Like maybe Oba does beat Brock at WrestleMania and post Backlash, like it's Oba to the moon. Sure, that would be awesome. That's fresh. That's cool. What else is going on? There's still, okay, Oba takes up 15 minutes every week on Monday Night Raw. Cool. We still got over 5 hours of content a week between 2 out of 3 shows. What else are we doing post WrestleMania, post Backlash to keep it fresh? Without a draft, genuinely nothing. You either have to pull the draft, which is what I want, or you would have to like completely get rid of the brand split. Like they are both super shows from here on out, which I hate that idea personally, but that is the only other option outside of a draft to keep it fresh at this point. Because I would need other people mixing it up. I already said this last week. I think after WrestleMania, I never need to see LA versus the Vision again. The Usos versus the Vision again. You know, like a lot of those things need to be mixed up. Let's get the fucking Guns versus the Usos. Let's get Fraxium versus the Vision. Like we need the draft, a shakeup, something of that to make those things happen. Baffling to me if they're not discussing that.
What's worrying too is I think they lean on like we've got these new faces and like yes, that does help. I won't sit here and act like the new faces hurt. Trick being on SmackDown freshens whoever he's facing because it's a different feud for Sammy if he feuds with Orton, whatever. You know, Alistair hasn't feuded with many people since he's been back. Javon called up, Oba. You even get the little signings like Danhausen, whatever. Like, there's probably going to be another batch soon. At some point, Ethan Page is going to come up. Ricky Saints is going to come up. I fear they're like, oh, well, we have these people coming up. Like, that's fresh. That freshens it up. In a way, yes, but all your main eventers or main people are running out of people. So it still ends up being kind of the same stale stuff unless you have those new people feud with those main eventers. Great. Oba versus Seth Rollins or Oba versus CM Punk. That is awesome. Who does LA Knight face? There's no one really new for LA Knight. Like who you need these shakeups. Like you need the call-ups and the shakeup to happen at the same time or just a little offset. So everything is fresh. So just switching two tag teams from one side to the other freshens both tag divisions instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Truth and Priest together. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
we felt like it was coming. Great. SmackDown needs a tag team. They now got a tag team. Guess what? Raw needs a tag team too. Ship Fraxium over there now.
Yeah.
Whatever. Do the same thing on Raw. Ship another, ship the War Raiders over to SmackDown. I don't know. Something. And like it's also more annoying because it's such an easy event to have. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
such like a, you know, we've got 10 fucking Saturday night's main event. We can't have one draft special. You know?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't have one fucking
Uh,
Peacock exclusive, Netflix exclusive something like it you can't do it
Baffling.
like
I think Peacock's done now, actually. I think that was the last NXT event even on Peacock. Am I
oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're actually right.
Regardless, though, still you got to have some event somewhere. You would think it would be so easy. Um, that you mentioned like these tag teams transferring over and stuff too. And listen, like there's a lot of integration now with TNA and AAA, and I don't expect Leon Slater to be popping up in WWE every week. I get it, but you need a tag team. I'm not saying I need 52 weeks a year or 52 days out of the year, Mr. Iguana being on Monday Night Raw, but cool, let's get Iguana and fucking whoever from AAA to have a 2 month stint, and they're a tag team on Raw feuding for the title. Whatever, like you can integrate these people, keep it a little bit more fresh, and maybe that's a way of doing it without like a crazy draft or shakeup. But like, I do just need more in this upcoming again fiscal year of wrestling, where last year wasn't the greatest year, and a lot of it plays in part to the whole John Cena heel turn, all that, obviously. Fine, whatever. We don't have that this year. We have a lot of fresh things this year. I so heavily wish AJ Styles was still wrestling. I would love an AJ Styles title run. The pro in AJ Styles retiring is, well, there's 10 to 15 more minutes of screen time every week for the Dragon Lees of the world, for the up and comers, the Obas and all these things. Like, cool. Let's start officially like really establishing some of these other fun names, making talent more known. I do think it's a little deeper than just a draft and stuff too. Like, man, I've been kind of saying this for a while now. It might be time to just pull the trigger on an LA Knight heel turn. Maybe that's like the refresher for LA Knight too. Maybe you got to pull some strings with some of these people to freshen it up a little bit. A lot of call-ups on the horizon, I'm sure, too, as you said. Ricky Saints, Ego, Ethan Page, Tony D can't be far out. The women are pretty stacked right now. I don't think there's a woman necessarily coming up that soon. JC Jane probably, but outside of her,
I think Soul might come up soon. I think she might lose to Sari and come up.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me actually. Yeah, I guess you're right. Soul would probably be the next call up. I actually think JC Jane is more than ready, but I think NXT needs like that faction more than maybe the main roster needs JC Jane right now, which we've talked about plenty. We talked about it last week. You're filling a role, you're fitting a role. If that role is not there, we're not going to use you quite yet. So you might as well hold her down there. But regardless, like there's going to be an influx of talent. Some talent has retired. More talent might retire come WrestleMania. I need this year of 2026 to be fresh. I need it to be very new. I want to see this Oba push to the moon. I want to see. Listen, it's a shame this whole Vision stable ended up not working out. We loved it. We're being recorded watching Braun Breaker make that fucking first spear with Seth Rollins, the Raw after Mania. Like, we loved it, but it's just not quite working out. Injuries, things happen, whatever. Let's move it along. Let's switch it up. Let's do something. I need a big change of pace post WrestleMania.
Yeah, we got, like you said, last year when Braun Breaker had that turn, like that was a big change of pace. Then it just never, it was always like one step forward, two steps back. Like
Mm,
injury just killed that faction. And it 1,000,000% affected Mania drastically. Because
yes.
before the Rollins original injury, which we really don't even talk about that much because we're so focused on Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, before Rollins' injury, like Rollins is probably going into Mania as champion. Punk
Mhm.
probably doesn't even have this title run, and it's probably Rollins versus Roman, and who knows? Punk is facing maybe an LA Knight, or maybe he's facing Braun Breaker there, whatever. Like that goes back how far, there was the rumors of Cody Roman was a possibility, and then Cody Drew, whatever. Clearly, there's been like all of these changes and injuries have not helped. But after Mania this year, they do need that like that big shakeup, but it's got to be something that like I don't want to say left field. Like the Braun Breaker aligning with Rollins was out of left field,
Mhm.
and I did like that and saw the vision behind it. They need something like similar but not drastic, and
Mm,
I think it really does kind of line with Oba Femi. Like
mm,
Oba beats Brock, and that next night is like Oba just takes out Punk and Reigns or something like that, or he takes out Rollins, and he really is this next powerhouse. And fuck, they have the title match the next night, and he fucking wins the title. I don't give a
dude,
fuck.
yeah. Uh,
Like that is the big change. That's the drastic move, and then we get to this. Every person that faces Oba is going to be fresh, and it's a fresh champion, and every matchup is fresh. And then you can have that trickle down effect for the rest of the card. It needs it this post Mania. If we don't get something along those lines, the fan interest is it's not dwindling like people are acting, but it's definitely dwindling. And last year's Mania, you can't have back to back Manias this bad.
you can't. Yeah, it would be really bad if they botch this WrestleMania. I mean, I do think last year's WrestleMania, like again, I don't think the feuds and all those things were built up that well. Some of the matches were disappointing. Cody Cena, you expect more. They clearly showed us that at SummerSlam that we should have gotten more. There's still some fun matches on the Mania 41 card, but like it's not memorable. They're fun matches, moments. Dom wins the title, cool. The men's triple threat was great. Women's triple threat was great. Outside of those three things, really, like it's a lot of forgettable things. You need a moment this WrestleMania, I do think, to really like remember in history. When you look back at Mania 41 as a whole, like, okay, the biggest moment is Heyman turning on Roman Punk. Seth won that triple threat. You remember that, sure. Outside of that, there's nothing to go. That was well, you don't see the moment go Mania 41. You see the image of Cody holding the title. You go, oh, that was the Mania 40 match. Like Mania 42, I think needs like a big moment. I don't know what it's going to be this year because the matches, although I have no fucking idea who's going to win either of these title matches, the men's title matches. The women's are a little bit more predictable, sure, but like Cody Orton, coin toss. Roman Punk, coin toss. And I like that. I love that, really. I don't want to have the fucking immediate assumption that Punk is going to win this match, whatever. But either of those guys winning either of those matches is not like, uh, oh my God, this guy won, this happened. If they ran a fatal four-way for that men's championship and Fatu won the match, that would be the fucking holy shit moment, you know. I don't think the audience, the general, you know, online audience is willing to understand or admit that like there's a grander scheme to what they're doing here. I love Fatu. We all love Fatu. Fatu is not the household name yet. You know, like it is very bold to pull that trigger on somebody like that until they're a bit more established. It's rare for them to do that. You gotta fucking do it with Oba Femi though. Like that's what I'm getting at here is transferring this back to Oba Femi. If I'm booking Oba Femi, I swear to God, he's world champion by SummerSlam, the latest. Like, do something different. Let's really get like a new main eventer in the mix somewhere, a new threat, a new big bad, somebody to mix it up with all these guys. Even if you're not going to have a draft, now you have Oba Femi on Raw post WrestleMania. Like, okay, yeah, he's gonna toss it up with the Rusevs of the world like he already has. You know, maybe he gets an IC title Penta match in there. Like, it's fresh because Oba and Penta have never faced. Oba and the Grandes, the whoever's of the world. But if you were to take that guy and really just put him in that main title picture alongside the Seths, the Braun Breakers, the LAs, the Usos, like that is very fresh, and we need that post WrestleMania. The SmackDown side of things is good right now. It's better than Raw. The women need a crazy refresher. Like, need a draft more than maybe anything, any brand, any division, whatever. Like, I don't see a way to refresh the women on SmackDown without a draft. Like, truly, without a trade, a draft, anything in that realm, there's nothing. At least the men have an Oba that you can skyrocket. You have a Trick Williams you can skyrocket. And not to say you couldn't do that with a Jordan Grace or Julia, like some of these more fresh names for the women, but it's a lot harder on that side of things. I want a fucking draft. That's the point. Give me a draft.
You were talking about the moments, like having a big moment.
Mhm.
I think the biggest moment that they could do, if I if I had the choice and they were like, "Hey, make this as big as it can be and keep it realistic," I'm already on record. I don't want people getting involved in either main event.
Yep.
I don't want a single fucking run in.
No bloodline rules.
I think like the biggest end to both nights. Night one is during Cody Orton, ref gets distracted, whatever. Orton low blows Cody. Orton even punts Cody. And it's obvious, like Orton has turned heel and won the WWE Championship.
Mhm.
Night two, CM Punk beats Roman Reigns. He out wrestles Roman Reigns.
Mhm.
He finds a way and he wins. There's no involvement from the Usos. No one gets involved. Punk was the better man. Then right after Mania, you have Punk Oba Femi, and Oba Femi takes the title from Punk. And on the SmackDown side, you have a heel Randy Orton who can work with the tweener Trick Williams, a babyface Jacob Fatu. Eventually, when Cody comes back from the punt, Cody Rhodes again. And you also, I don't want to say Alistair is like Karrion Cross, but you also elevated Alistair a little bit, bringing that side out of Randy. And now Alistair's
Mhm.
feud with Ilya or Carmelo Hayes for the United States Championship feels like it's got a little bit more to him because Alistair's beaten the current champion. Like it feels like that can kind of trickle down and freshen things up for the rest of both shows. But like you said, the women's side, it's a lot harder. I mean, the women's world title, I guess the next route would be if Stephanie win or lose, you're gonna start playing into the Raquel, maybe even Roxanne and Liv. Like they have completely ignored the Royal Rumble elimination. Like just they're like you didn't Men in Black, boop, you didn't see that. But they have to do, oh, it's long term story after all, whatever. Raquel attacks Liv or Liv attacks Raquel. However, that's how they have to freshen up that situation. The SmackDown women, they just have to pray. They have to pray.
Yeah, yeah,
They just
yeah.
have to
Literally,
pray
not like,
that something comes to them in their sleep, that Bianca's finger is healed, something.
yeah, man. The women on SmackDown. They got to stay away from Danhausen too. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way. Danhausen starts cursing the SmackDown woman. It's only going to get worse from here, you know. So they got to be careful on that side of things. It's interesting. It's tough. As much as I'm anticipating WrestleMania, always am like, it's fucking WrestleMania season, baby. For us wrestling fans, like this is the time of the year. But I really, really, really am looking forward to the post WrestleMania season. Like, what are we going to get? How are they going to keep us in tune? How are they going to book these superstars? What are they going to do? I'm never going to stop watching wrestling, obviously, but after WrestleMania, I need more. Like we have always been straight shooters. We're going to call it how it is. Wrestling this last year was not great. It was not as bad as people made it out to be. You were not there in, 2009 to 2011, 2017, 2018, COVID era. If you're calling this the worst wrestling you've ever seen, you were not there during those times. So it's not that bad, but we gave it a year at this point. We are optimistic. All right, listen, this month wasn't good. Let's see what happens next month. All right, SummerSlam now. That was a good show. Things fell off again. Whatever. Okay, now it's been a year since WrestleMania 41. Injuries have happened. A bunch of things have happened. I get it. But I got to put my foot down now. We gave you a year. You haven't done anything all that electric. Now's the time. If you don't now, you're going to lose some people.
I'm excited for Mania. I'll always be excited for Mania.
100%.
I'm excited for these last few weeks of Raw and SmackDown. I do, the optimist in me, hold out hope that we will get these payoffs and we will get these matchups that we want, that we're looking forward to. But I'm more excited to talk about it because if it sucks, we're going to fucking say it sucks. And if it's great, we're going to say it's great because we are as authentic as it gets. We are straight shooters. We are not cowards. But are you a coward?
Subscribe or be a coward.